You know. On the other hand, there are mega churches like they exist in the United States, which are there exclusively for political purposes, with hundreds of thousands of people giving money to teach, creationism in schools and to push political agendas that have absolutely nothing to do with this inner, intense feeling of devotion. I cannot possibly defend that, and I would attack every single one of their entities as simply bogus and fictional. Yeah.
So it appears to me that you're prioritizing kinesthetic learning over, say, auditory and visual, which is interesting because it brings into me there's a certain set of consequences of learning kinesthetically. It's like you have to learn by learning the boundaries. You have to learn by getting hurt, essentially, in some way. Like, you touch that, that's hot, don't touch that. So if that's the way that you're perceiving the world in general, it seems it enters into a fragility of your own perception, because there's a lot of different things that can be entered in. So like when you're imagining in your head the jasmine tree and the fireplace and all that stuff, is that something that you've actually experienced, or is that something that you saw on the Sundance Channel or something? There's when you're relying so heavily on sense perceptions, and there's so many ways that in this multimedia world that our senses are being overloaded all the time, how do you know really what...
Yeah, and your senses can fool you, right? I mean, in many occasions you see there are optical illusions, you see things that are not there. I absolutely agree with you. There are limits to the senses. This is why I break with Hume, because Hume says that knowledge can only come from the senses. And that is not a materialist position. That is what is called positivism. So, for instance, Hume cannot believe in the existence of oxygen, or the existence of electrons, or the existence of viruses and bacteria, for that matter, because you cannot see them directly. And so positivism is based on that idea, and Wolfgang just mentioned it, and say, hey, wait, all we are believing is in what we can directly experience. Everything else is just a theoretical construct that's useful to make predictions about disease, in the case of bacteria, to make predictions about breathing and respiration in the case of oxygen. A full materialist accepts that our senses operate within a very narrow portion of reality. We can hear sounds only within certain frequencies. Lower than those frequencies, we cannot hear any sound. Higher than those frequencies, we cannot hear any sound. And it would be absurd to deny that those sounds are there. Bats hear them. Dogs hear those sounds. We cannot see ultraviolet or infrared. But bees can, and many other insects and animals can. So are we going to deny that just because we don't see it, just because it's outside of our narrow window into the world, they don't exist? So the materialist corrects Hume by saying, yes, part of our source of knowledge, certainly part of our source of know-how, is things that we can see, and more importantly, things that we can intervene in. That you intervene in water by moving your arms, or that you intervene in a bicycle by moving the pedals, in which actions of your body are making a difference, in that they are moving you or propelling you. But a full materialist has to say, look, for evolutionary purposes, our ears can only hear a certain range of sounds, and there are many other ranges of sounds. We can only see certain range of colors, or certain fragment of the spectromagnetic spectrum, but there's radio, microwaves, ultraviolet, and so on, which are every bit as real, because now astronomers are studying radio waves coming from stars. Things are not visible. Those telescopes are not optical anymore. They're entirely different types of machines. And so, and of course, we can only see things that operate at our own speed. One of the things that always impressed me as a child were those stop-motion films of flowers blooming, right? You would shoot one frame every 10 minutes or something like that for, say, 24 hours, and then you would play it back in real time, and then you would see something that's invisible normally, because normally you see the flower like that, you go to sleep, you come back, and it's already open. But we never see the becoming flower of the flower, because the becoming is too slow. We are surrounded by slow becomings that we don't see. So what do? We invent stop-motion photography. And now we can see those slow becomings. Or the other way around. There are certain becomings that are so fast that we don't see them. Say a bullet crossing, hitting you in the head, not you in the face, in my face probably. You know, and the becoming wound of the wound, you never see. All you see is like, bam, and a bunch of blood splashed over the wall over there. But you shoot it at 700 frames per second, or 1,000 frames per second, and then you run it at regular speed, and you see the bullet, the wound open, you see the becoming, you see the splashing of the blood. Stop motion, or fast motion and slow motion photography are like microscopes and telescopes in time. They allow you to telescope yourself in time and see the flower blooming. They allow you to microscope in time and see becomings that were so fast you couldn't see them. And that should make us humble about the power of our own senses. We don't see all that much. We need instruments. We need ways of amplifying our senses in order to be able to capture becomings that are too slow or too fast, or things that are too small or too large, or things that are too far away or too close. And so the senses must be the beginning, and certainly they are the beginning in a child's education. But by the moment you become a knowledge producer, a philosopher, a scientist, you need to get rid of that anthropocentrism or that provincialism of the human senses, and start inventing as many machines as we can to see more, to hear more, to smell more, to feel more. Yes.
First, one comment. Meninges. I don't know if you've read Meninges' Conquest.
She's a Latin
No.
Another thing is, I have a question. It has to do with the game of chess. How do you play a fair game of chess and why?
Well, first of all, we would not need to know, first of all, that chess is a combination of knowing how and knowing that. Right? Chess masters know that this particular situation is called the Russian opening. And they know that this particular variation is the leftist Russian opening version 3.0. But at the same time, as a matter of know-how, you're not a chess master, and you look at the chessboard and you see all the possible combinations in your mind. You immediately filter out the irrelevant ones. That's why chess masters up to a few years ago used to beat up computers, despite their enormous brute force approach. Because a chess master has acquired the know-how to disregard what doesn't make a difference in an instant. That's not about meanings, or at least not definitions and disambiguations. It's about significance. What patterns and what moves. Once you have filtered out the irrelevant ones, then you can start examining in more analytical way and perhaps using language. If I do this, he'll do that. Or if we do this, he'll do that, and then you need language. But the very first move was to eliminate all the irrelevant options right away. That's what computers can do, because computers, at least until connectionism, haven't had enough opportunity to do that. I'll get back to you. Let me just get back to the other.